So let's get this in. Aditya, thank you so much for joining us. So Aditya, can you please introduce yourself to the audience today?
Hello everyone, I'm Aditya. I got a GRE score of 330. Now I'm looking forward to pursue MS in Electronics and Computer Engineering at Georgia Institute of Technology. I got four admits from CMU, Georgia Institute of Technology, Arizona State University, and University of Southern California. And I'm looking forward to join Georgia Tech in fall 2017.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I think Georgia Tech is kind of the dream leagues for so many students here. How many guys have this on your dream list, audience? Carnegie Mellon, Georgia Tech. How many guys have that as a dream? Ashish, Sanket. Wow. You might probably meet Aditya next year down the lane. He might be a senior there pursuing your masters. So have in good touch with him. Okay, you can talk to him to understand how much ever information you want. Okay. So Aditya, can we proceed with this? We'll take up your questions as much as possible. In the end, also we will have a Q&A session where Aditya will try to answer as many questions as possible. Okay, a lot of perfect, definitely excited coming in right now. All right, so Aditya, with respect to your GRE score, can you please tell us your GRE score, your quant verbal breakdown?
Yeah, sure. So I scored a 330 in my GRE. I got 170 in my quant, and my verbal score was 160, and my AWO score was 4. So yeah, that's how it looks.
A perfect 170 on 170 in quant. Wow, I think that automatically puts you above all of us. I think, like the data goes, there are only 3% GRE test takers who score a perfect 170. They're already there. In fact, look at the surprising question from students. He says 160 in verbal. Wow, no more than a quant. 160 in verbal also is an incredible achievement. So we look at that one by one GRE preparations, Aditya. So how do you feel now? Like you got admit in Georgia Tech, you've got the best score. How do you feel now?
Actually, I feel pretty good. Like this is sort of a dream come true. This is what I was looking forward to when I was doing my BTech. So it's pretty good feeling right now.
That's awesome to hear. We're very glad to be part of your journey, Aditya. So before we move on to the serious content where we talk about your GRE preparation and mission, I want to know you a little more better. So students have this perception, anyone who go to Georgia Tech or Carnegie Mellon, MIT should typically from IIT. Okay, and we know it's not that picture. So can you tell me where are you, where do you undergraduation from and what are your hobbies like?
Yeah, so I just completed my undergraduate and I was in fourth year this year. So I did my undergrad at Vishwakarma Institute of Technology in Pune. Yeah, so that's my undergrad college. And as far as my hobbies are concerned, I like playing soccer, I like playing cricket, chess, reading books, and also I watch TV serials, like English ones.
Okay, that TV series. What kind of TV series do you follow, Aditya?
Uh, Something like Game of Thrones, Sherlock, House of Cards.
Well, fair enough. I think that's pretty much that makes you one among us. In fact, we do watch all that. Okay, now Pavan Ramesh says, so now I understand why you nailed the verbal section. Having followed House of Cards does give you a lot of vocabulary, right? Okay, so we're gonna jump to the actual part of the seminar now. See, the very first question I ask my students is, what is your primary motivation for going for a master's program, and which field are you planning to do your master's on?
Yeah, so I'm going to do my MS in Electrical and Computer Engineering. So my specialization there would be VLSI. And my motivation was basically I want to become an research engineer in the as a long-term goal. So my MS would be my first step towards my research goal. So after MS, I'm planning to do PhD later on, and but before PhD, I need to do an MS. So especially, I'm interested in digital design in VLSI. That's where my specific research would be.
Wow, that's great. So you're going to digital design in particular. Now, I have,
Yeah.
in fact, one of your juniors, I think, Prathamesh Sati happens to be also in Vishwakarma Institute. Okay, so probably you might know him. Okay, so moving on to the next part. So digital design. So how did you come up with this realization that, is there any subjects that you picked up or did you do any projects? What is that like?
Yeah, I had a couple of subjects in second and third year that are digital electronics and digital integrated circuits. So they were inspiring, and I loved them actually. So that's how this came up.
Okay, so okay, I think you're talking to a student who did not fall in love with that, and but eventually finished electronics and communication. But okay, I'm glad you found your field that you want, your cup of tea. In fact, so you telling me that you not done any projects or internships so far on the same field?
Yeah, in fact, I have not done any kind of internships, and actually, my final year project was VLSI.
Okay. So you had to primarily rely on GRE and your GGPA for this mammoth total, right?
Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So now we'll move on to the GRE preparations part. Now, GRE prep, like again, you got a 330 in 30 days. So, can you give us a quick overview on when was the first time you thought about GRE in particular, and when did you start preparing?
So by the end of my third year in May 2016, I was thinking that I should do my master's. So that's when I thought I will be, need to give my GRE. So I started preparing around June, but I didn't do anything like I was just preparing randomly. I started to do words um, in June, and so I started solving some random sums, which was not actually of much help. But actually I started studying every day in on August 22nd, I think. That's when I started studying properly. So and after that I studied every day. So if we could go to the next slide, please.
Yes,
So I would like to give you guys some tips. So what I wanted to say is basically Uh, three tips that I would like to give as for GRE as a whole would be that first, when I used to study, there was a directionless approach, so it didn't help me. I couldn't find anything like what I was doing. But what you need actually is a direction to your study. Like you should know what to do, and you should know what you have covered, and you should know your strong and weak areas and work accordingly. So the second thing that I would like to suggest is uh, you need focus and consistency is a very important thing. See, even though I started studying very late, I gave my GRE on 29th of September, and I started studying on, I think, 22nd of August. That's when I joined the GRE 30 days course.
hmm,
So
hmm.
even though I started studying late, studied every day for 2 hours on weekdays and 5 hours on weekends. 2 hours because I used to have my college. So even though I had my exams, I had my everything, I gave those 2 hours to GRE and only GRE, and studied every day with consistency. And apart from this, gave 1 hour to only words. So that is very important. So the third would be the right study materials to use. So this is where GREH came into picture. So they gave me the proper study material with a proper study plan also. So that's where it was a lot of help. So and also I have used only the material given to me by GREH and the ETS official guide. So that's what I've used. So that has been very helpful to me.
That's great. That's great. So I think pretty much a very, very comprehensive amount of tip that you're given from your experience in GRE. So on a parallel note, I've got a lot of questions from students. One specific question for your CGPA in particular. What was your CGPA when you applied for your master's program?
My CGPA was around 8.9.
8.9. That's wonderful. So I hope that answers your questions, guys. Now I have a question from Surya. Did you have any research paper published to get an admit in Georgia Tech?
Yeah, no, I did not have any research publication nor any internships.
Wonderful.
So I was
So I think, yeah, go on.
actually depending on a good GRE score. I was hoping that I would get a good GRE score. That is what has helped me. Because as and when you do practice, you understand where you are doing those mistakes, and then the next time you're going to be able to improve there. So the second area would be analyzing your weak areas. So what do you know? Do you guys know what are your weak areas?
Okay. So the question across to the audience from Aditya. So what are your weaker areas in GRE Quant? So can you tell me Ayushi, Soundarya? So charts, geometry, graphs, DI, verbal, geometry. Wow, I think you have a lot of company here, Aditya. Geometry, statistics, quant is what I can see so far, Aditya.
So now you know that this is your weak area. So can you find out, or do you know exactly what you are lagging behind in that area?
Okay, okay. So in the question for the audience is in geometry, for the people of said geometry, what is that specific problem you have in geometry? Do anyone of you aware about that? In your topic, you have mentioned, what is the problem in that particular area? Like it's easy to say, so graphs take a long time, says Siddhartha. Percentiles, says Monica. Complex diagrams, okay. I think the basic formulas are very confusing, because Maitri has pointed out, Aditya.
Yeah, so like you guys, even I had the same problem. I was facing problems in geometry, but I used to understand the concepts very well. But I had this problem with the formulae. Always used to forget the formulae and always lost marks in that. So that is how you have to look at your weaker areas. You have to find them. You have to exactly know where you're weak, and you have to work them so that you can make them strong. So that's our second tip. The third tip is when you're actually giving your exam, so don't keep a time plan in your mind and follow it blindly, like 2 minutes for every question. Keep solving a question for 2 minutes, because when you go there and you're going to realize that every question has a different difficulty level. Some questions can be solved in hardly 20 seconds just by looking at them, while some questions like permutation and combination are much more difficult. They'll take 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So but it will eventually balance out. So you have to keep yourself like that flexible. So that would be the third tip. And the fourth tip is you have to keep giving mock tests as regular intervals. So as I said, my first diagnostic test quant score was 155, so which was very low from what I actually got. But I kept giving tests and I kept receiving feedback from my quant SFA. I found out where I was lacking, what mistakes I was doing, and I kept improving my score 155, 165, 160. And finally, in the final GRE exam, I got a 170. So that's how you have to go about.
All right, so 155, 165, 160 to 170. Wow, that's a huge, very clear development plan that you have made for yourself, Aditya. So, can you tell me? So, one question I can see is how regular should we be in these tests? Like, how often should we take a test? And the next question I can see is what are the popular test materials that you used?
So basically, what I used was the GRE provided me with GRE provided me with 5 mock contests. So I relied on them, and plus the ETS official test prep was there. So they had 2 official full length tests. So those were the test material that I have used. Uh, and also
Okay.
about
Mhm.
the regularity, I would want to tell is generally weekends are free, so you can give one quant and one verbal test at least every weekend. So that's what I would suggest.
All right, so very, very clearly, I think a weekly test and a proper test portals to be used. I think that pretty much answers a lot of questions that I can see. Okay, now as I expected, Aditya, the questions here are jumping to this part. In fact, I can see that oh, it's okay about quant, but I'm very, very, very bad in verbal. In fact, there are more verses of explaining that the word. So, verbal is something that people do find very daunting, and it's a very difficult section at the end of the day. So, from your experience, what are some of the most important tips for verbal preparations?
Yeah, so verbal is indeed very difficult. In fact, a verbal was much more difficult for me than quant. So the first and the most important thing in verbal is doing those words, learning those words. So there is no shortcut for that. So there are around 3,500 words that you might master. For GRE, I myself had mastered around 2,500 words. I had learned them, so I did the words every day without fail for 1 hour, and my 1 hour breakdown was usually 45 minutes for learning and 15 minutes for revision. So that's how I did it, and I did it every day. College exams, anything, no excuses were there. So the second tip would be analyze the types of question and then decide the approach. So what I want to say here is, like, your 50 there are RC questions, sentence equivalence, and text completion. So the 50% of your verbal questions would be based on reading comprehension. So these questions generally take a much more time than the other two, sentence equivalence and text completion. So what I would suggest is you should give more time to RC questions, and it will balance out with the sentence equivalence and text complete, because they hardly take 30 seconds to 1 minute, not more than that. So always give more time to RC questions. And also in reading comprehension, you should see how many questions are there for that paragraph. For example, if there is only one question for the paragraph, then you should read that question and then find the answer in the paragraph. And but if there are more than one questions, then I would suggest that read the whole paragraph first and then go for the questions. Also, when you are reading the paragraph, keep in mind the types of questions that are asked in GRE. So there are questions like what is the conclusion of paragraph, etc. So you have to keep in mind the questions and then read the paragraph accordingly. So in the end, you automatically have the answers, and you just have to click the correct option. So the third tip is keep a constant check on progress and follow the study plan rigorously. So this is what, and you need to be consistent in doing those words. Also, you need to keep checking your progress. So you can't just go on solving sums. You have to see how much you have progressed. So there was a progress check feature in my GREH plan, so that also helped me a lot. So these are few tips that I can give for verbal.
Wow. I think it's a very, very, very well compiled set of tips. Now, one thing I couldn't catch up, in fact, audience also found it difficult to catch the RC part. I think that made a lot of sense. Can you repeat that RC thing? How do you approach an RC when you approach a question? How do you go about it?
Yeah, so what I want to say is RC part, you should always give more time. Like if there is 2 minutes for every question in whole of verbal, then you should give 3 to 4 minutes for RC, because your sentence equivalence and text completion will be solved in 30 seconds or 1 minute. So when doing RC, what I want to say is, if there is only one question for one big paragraph, then I would suggest that read the question first and then read the paragraph to find the answer. But if there are more than one questions, like 3 4 questions, then you should read the paragraph first and then go for the questions. Also, when you're reading the paragraph first, while reading the paragraph, keep in mind what types of questions are asked in RC in GRE. Like what is the inference of the paragraph, and like that, there is a set of what questions are asked on the paragraph, so you have to keep them in mind. So while reading the paragraph, you read it accordingly, forming answers in your mind. So when you go to the questions, you just have to select the proper option. Am I clear now?
Actually, that actually explains very clearly the time management also part of that RC, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense also. So guys in the audience, so far, how are you finding the session to be? Are you able to get a lot of information here? Can we proceed with the next part? Now, while I get that answer, I have a question from Virendra. Virendra says, which GRH program did Aditya choose in particular? So what was the app? What was the program that you went for, Aditya?
So I joined GRE Edge very late, so I used a 30 days fast track program.
30-day
Track
fast
GRE.
track program, yes, and the Dream University. Okay, now I go to the next part of it. So now I have Shambu says, did you also join the admission counseling?
Yeah, I did join it. The
Okay,
Dream
so we're
University.
gonna go to The Dream University package. Okay, we're going to go to the next part, the AWA section. I think a lot of people want to know about the admission timeline. The next one is admission time. We have to very keenly discuss that. So before we jump to the admissions, the AWA preparations, Aditya, how did you prepare for AWA? A lot of people tend to give up on it because they don't think it's very important, but we know how important it is. So can you tell me, how did you prepare for AWA?
So your AWA is important actually. It the score there are cutoffs in every universities have a cutoff of around with 3 or 4 for AWA also. So you should not ignore it. So basically for AWA ETS has a huge pool of questions, arguments, and essays. So basically you have to practice a few questions from them. So I did the same thing. I practice around 6 to 7 essays and arguments. So also on 2 or 3 of my essays, I got feedback from my verbal SFA. So based on my feedback, I was able to understand how where I'm lacking, because it is very difficult, right, to evaluate your own essay. In fact, I found it impossible to do. So based on my feedback from my verbal SFA was very helpful. So I understood where I was doing mistakes, like I was not being elaborate, because as elaborate you are, the more marks you're going to get. And also you need to stay like you cannot wear off, you have to stay on point. So that is how I do. A proper feedback mechanism is very necessary, because you cannot evaluate your essays on your own. You need someone to tell you where you're lacking and what should be improved. So that is how I did AWA.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, I have some questions regarding the AWA in particular. So, Soundarya Rajesh wants to know, where can we get this particular feedback? That is one question. Second question is, what is the word limit on analytical writing essays?
uh, About the word limit, firstly, I'd like to tell you that there is no word limit. And in fact, the longer you write, if you write about what is given, then you are expected to get more marks. But it doesn't mean you can write long and long. But you should be very elaborate. That is what I want to say. But stay on point. Don't lose your focus. And the what was the second question?
Second question is about how to get a proper feedback for a particular AWA essay. How did you get a feedback?
Yeah, so my feedback was from my verbal SFA. He had a very good knowledge of about that. So he was the one who gave me the feedback.
Okay, so I
Hello.
think that is pretty much answers your question. The next question that I commonly see here is, this is the last question we'll take for Jerry. We'll move to admissions after this. Your vocabulary per se, how many words did you actually master, and how did the WordBot app really help you there?
Yeah, so I mastered around 2,500 words, I think, approximately. And the WordBot app is actually very helpful. What it does is, with every word you get a picture representing the word. So it's called actually visual learning. So when you get that word in the exam, you tend to remember that picture, so that gives you an understanding of what the meaning of the word is. So that is how the wordbot app will help you. Hello, I can't hear you.
All right. So I think there was just small technical glitch. Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that will conclude the GRE part now. We'll jump to the admissions part now. So far, we've discussed everything about GRE. Now, you got admitted in Carnegie Mellon University, we got admits from Georgia Tech, and of course Arizona State University, quite one of the most popular universities among students. So, can you take us through what was your timeline like? What are the things that you did to get this university admit, and when did you start? How did you go about it?
Yeah, so I'll let you guys know about my timeline, but I was pretty late. I don't want you guys to follow me because I was very late in my admission processes. So I gave my GRE on 29th September, and uh, then in the month of October, I had my college exams, so I couldn't do much. So I started by the October end and November start. I joined the GREH counseling, and I started with my admissions process. So it consists of 5 steps actually. So we can go through them one by one.
All right,
So
so let me just show the first slide to you.
yeah. So the first step is a very difficult task, actually, the university shortlisting. So I found this university shortlisting a very difficult task. So that's why I joined the GREH counseling. Actually, it sounds very easy, but there are more than 300, 400 universities that you have to choose from, and it is very like you want to go to only one, but it is a very difficult task. So when I joined GRE, there was a orientation session. So I told them my expectations, and then they gave me a questionnaire. So asking about my profile, about what I wanted to do, which subject I wanted to do, and based on that, and also they wanted to know which universities that I preferred, which universities and which area in United States. So based on that, they evaluated my profile. I didn't, as I said, I didn't have any internships or research publications or a good major project in that this in my field VLSI. But I had a very good academic record and also a good GRE score. So that's what I used, and they found around 15 universities from me, and that were suitable for me. And from those, I shortlisted 7 universities that were CMU, Georgia Tech, um, Arizona State University, University of Southern California, UC Berkeley, and University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and University of Texas Austin. Yeah. So then we can go to the next step maybe.
All right, sure. We'll go to next part. Yes.
So the next step probably would be the most important step is the statement of purpose. So as I said, I didn't have any internships or research publications. So it was very important for me to write a very good statement of purpose. Uh, so basically, I there was again a questionnaire asking me in detail about what I want to do, why I want to do an MS, and what are my achievements, academic, non-academic, extracurricular so far, and how is an MS going to help me, and what are my short-term and long-term goals. So based on that questionnaire, I gave elaborate answers to my counselor, and based on that, GREH helped me with a draft of my SOP, which I did some modification and then finalized it. So basically, I would like to give you some tips regarding the SOP. So the first thing I would like to say is you have to keep it simple, like and you have to tell everything to the like. Don't fake anything in your SOP. I'm sure that you'll get into trouble later on. So basically, you have to be truthful about yourself. You have to convey them why do you want to do this MS? Why do you need MS? What do you want to do in your life, and how is MS going to help you, and why exactly do you want to join that particular universities. So
Mm-hmm.
you should cover, and also you should, if you have done any projects in that particular field that you want to join, that will be helpful. You want to show your passion in that field somehow in your SOP, and your SOP is the only way you can show it. So that's
Hmm.
how you want to build your SOP.
Right. Wow. That's very, very clearly explained. In fact, SOP does play a very, very important role in students' profile. In fact, when you, like you said, especially when you don't have internship or research publication, yes, it plays an important role. So, what was the next step along this admission timeline, Aditya?
So after SOPs comes your letters of recommendation. So I took three letters of recommendation all from my college professors. One was my head of the department, the second was my final year project guide, and the third was a subject teacher, subject professor. So the tips that I would like to give as far as letter of recommendations are concerned is you need to take them from the people that you're most closest to in your academics or in your college or where you're working. So it doesn't matter how high they are ranked, but it matters that how much you have worked with them, how much they know you well. So because only then they're going to give you a good letter of recommendation. So that is what you have to look, which professors or which managers you're close to, and that's how you will be, that will be helpful.
All right. So, letter of recommendation, the more closer you work with the professor, that will help you out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So the next part comes the application process. I think what is that application? Is that something that will take time, or how do you apply? How do you go to the portals, find it out? Can you explain this process?
Yeah, so the application process is not something easy. It looks easy, but actually it's quite a tedious job. For one college, I think around it will take at least 3 hours. So at least you'll need at least 1 week. So 1 week for this application process, and it's quite a huge task. In fact, when I was doing my applications, there were this Chennai floods going on, so it was difficult to contact my counseling. So these type of problems can come anytime. Although I got most of the help from my counselor, but still some problems can come. So always you have to be ready beforehand. In fact, most of the engineering colleges, good engineering colleges, will have deadlines on 15th or 16th of December for fall. So you should be prepared at least 1 week or 2 week before with all the transcripts and everything that you require, a letter of recommendation and SOP that you require at least 1 or 2 weeks beforehand, so that you can apply in those 1 or 2 weeks. And it's quite a tedious job. You cannot complete it in 1 day or 2 days. So that's what I would like to advise you guys. Keep everything ready 1 or 2 weeks beforehand.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Aditya. So I think yeah, application process does take a lot of time, and a lot of people do have constraints in that. Okay, now a lot of questions have come in from the audience. One particular question I can see is how can you convert your 10 scale GPA into 4 scale for CMU?
Uh, every college has their own way. So I think most of the colleges you do not require to convert it into a four scale. They do it on their own, and for few colleges they provide you with links that go to a website. You have to put all your grades and subjects there, and then that website will convert it for you. uh, so this is how it is done generally, but I think what you have to do for some colleges, it is like it is the toppest 10 point the toppest CGPA, uh, sorry, your CGPA upon toppest CGPA and multiplied by 4. So that's how you do it. I don't remember exactly what I had done for CMU, but there are these different ways, and I think your
Okay.
counselor should be able to help with you. But different ways are there. It's not same for all universities.
All right, fair enough. Thank you so much for that, Aditya. I think that was a very, very clearly explained, a very thorough seminar. Aditya, thank you so much for your valuable time. It's been a huge pleasure having you here. A lot of people have already raised a thank you as well. Like Pavan Ramesh, much thanks to Aditya. Diligently explained all the very best. So from our side and from student side, I wish you all the best ahead of your application process. And of course, the visa interview in particular. I hope you get the visa, and I'll see probably you will probably get you again next year live from Georgia Tech. to give a seminar on how the experience is there at Georgia Tech. Aditya, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wish everyone all the best.
Thank you, Aditya. All right, so Dilip, Surya, Swati, Vincia, Harshita, a lot of thank you coming in right now. Thank you so much, guys, for being a very patient attendees throughout the seminar. I hope you got a lot of information that you're looking for in particular, and I hope you enjoyed this seminar. If you want any more details, contact us in this number, mail us at info@greh.com, or call us at WhatsApp us at 988-445-3276. Be it any GREH, your word bot, your admission counseling will be very happy to help you out. All right, and yeah, that's about it. This is Vishnu signing off. A very good evening and take care, guys.